Before anything is seen, the estuary offers a witness. Below the dark surface, older lives keep their own slow counsel. Even the hunters of the bank read these marks with caution. And then, at last, the shape that wrote them. He enters not as an intruder, but as a certainty. To drink here is not a gesture of peace. It is a statement of belonging. Beneath him, another predator passes through a world suddenly made dangerous. Stillness in such a body is never the absence of force. The sky notices first. It often does. At a distance, the truth becomes harder, not softer. Where he passes, the living bank remembers the weight. One footprint is enough to alter the grammar of a shoreline. He listens in the way great predators do, not nervously but completely. In these waters, life survives by reading pressure before form. The deep-bodied fish waits, trusting heaviness to hide it. But some margins cannot conceal what watches from above. A single movement, and the calm of the pond is over. Escape here is measured in moments rather than distances. The first scavengers are rarely bold. They are merely patient. Even the small opportunists understand the value of arriving second. Elsewhere, another mouth waits in perfect stillness. At the edge of every giant story, smaller lives thread their way through consequence. Overhead, the estuary keeps its own thin, watchful traffic. But now the old corridor carries a second intention. The giant does not need to hurry. He only needs to turn. The smaller rival has chosen proximity over prudence. This is how dread accumulates not in noise, but in narrowing space. From above, the geometry is simple. One path, two claimants. And suddenly, the difference in scale becomes the difference in fate. The smaller hunter commits to the oldest gamble in nature that size may hesitate. It does not. In the confined world of mud and water, retreat comes brutally fast. The bank itself begins to choose sides. There are moments when survival is no longer victory, merely exit. The corridor has been claimed not by a cry, but by endurance. The rival remains near enough to remember, but no longer near enough to matter. Once danger has passed, the giant returns to the oldest needs. Below, the deeper world absorbs the violence without judgment. The first aftermath is always a silence full of intention. Now he follows the darker water inward, as though reading a map no other creature can see. There are elders in these basins, too broad still and ancient beyond alarm. His search is methodical. No flourish, no waste. The fish below hold their place, because movement itself can betray them. At the pond edge, the whole world seems to gather into one poised instant. The quick lives below are already choosing between speed and luck. The strike comes with the inevitability of gravity, and for one brief moment, the hidden life of the pool belongs to daylight. The watchers gather closer. The estuary is learning what has happened. He leaves with little ceremony. Great predators seldom linger over proof. Out in the wider water, others continue because the river allows no pause. In side channels and blind hollows, patience remains a living strategy. Above them, all the airborne hunters trace the shape of opportunity. Even the broad-headed ambusher feels the new order settling over the basin. The route of the giant is now legible to everything that feeds. And once more, the waterline narrows into decision. The saw-snouted hunter enters the throat as though the passage were still ordinary. But the giant has already changed what ordinary means. Below the shelf, the channel becomes a question with only one wrong answer. He leans into the moment, as though listening to the water itself. The fish runs straight into the future the giant has made for it. This is the stillness before certainty hardens. Below, instinct insists on speed. Above, mass waits. Then the estuary closes. Violence underwater is rarely seen in full. It is understood through ruin. When he rises, the channel bears witness. What remains of the kill becomes part of the corridor's memory. The sky lifts away from the scene, but not from its meaning. Even the displaced rival knows better than to contest the new boundary. The giant feeds, and the corridor, remade by force, serves him. Far below the shelf, older bodies drift through a world now connected by blood and collapse. The lesser scavengers measure distance more carefully now. From high above the bank no longer reads as landscape, but as event. On the dry margin, smaller opportunists are drawn to the edge of consequence. And then another authority appears not of water, but of land. The dry bank predator descends with the confidence of one accustomed to being feared. The water hunter turns. For the first time, possession must be defended. The newcomer comes down through the broken ground like a verdict. The air itself seems to recoil from what is about to happen. Two empires meet at a shelf too narrow for both. The giant yields ground, but not ownership. The land hunter chooses the moment when distance seems smallest. The answer comes not as panic, but as force redirected. In this brief collision, the estuary reveals what kind of terror it truly belongs to. Even the dry bank predator begins to discover the cost of overreach. Now the giant drives forward with the full authority of water weight and certainty. And the bank itself gives way beneath the argument. Retreat, once begun, becomes the only wisdom left. When the collapse is over, the corridor is deeper, darker, and entirely his. The lesser rival returns only far enough to understand that the old way is gone. The victor drinks again, as though the world has merely completed its rearrangement. Below, the ancient fish pass beneath a ceiling rewritten by violence. Overhead, the altered route is already becoming part of the estuary's permanent design. He moves on through it without looking back. The water, obedient to new depths, begins using the corridor he has made. The broken fern wall has become an opening. Others will live by that now. Even hidden mouths inherit the work of giants. He withdraws, but his absence does not diminish him. By now, the whole system reads as a single act of passage. Those who remain must choose new paths around his decisions. From above, the old and the new routes lie together like two versions of the same memory. In quieter water, older lives resume their patient continuance. The giant departs. As he arrived, not hurried, not uncertain, simply onward. The still basin keeps its own counsel even now. The small watchers return first, as they always do. Sometimes a fragment is enough to tell the whole story. By the day's end, the territory itself has become his final monument. And when the giant is almost gone, the estuary remains what he has made of it.